When's the last time you really sat down and thought about how grateful you were to be able to do what you do? I get it. There's a lot of weird, messed up things in the travel healthcare world, but at the core of it is some really wonderful things. So we're going to talk about gratitude on this week's edition of Travel Evolved. It's Travel Evolved. I'm Mark Holloway. Welcome to the episode, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it. Listen, I'm kind of opened up today because, as you can tell, I've got, it's just a beautiful day out here. This is the latest I've ever been in California as far as into the fall. I'm an empty nester now, so I am not rushing back to help high school kids or kid, depending upon what time frame we're talking about, still in school. So I'm taking some advantage and being very grateful for the opportunity I have to be in this area, which I absolutely love. I really am very grateful for the two areas of the country I get to live in and spend time in. It doesn't go unnoticed by me, and there isn't pretty much a day I don't think about how awesome it is to have that ability. And I think in today's episode, we're going to talk about gratitude in general, because I do think it's just one of those things that, with things being as they are and how stressful this whole industry is from really all walks of life. It's not just the traveler. It's not just the agency. Everybody in healthcare and in healthcare staffing, it is not for the faint of heart. It is a difficult, tough industry. There are times when things are a little bit easier, for sure. There are times when things go great. But for the most part, this is the career that all of us, including you guys, have chosen to participate in or move your career toward. And I hope there's wonderful reasons for it. But today I really wanted to just spend a little bit of time and spend some of your time, if I may, talking about gratitude and how I feel like as a society, especially here in the United States, we oftentimes forget to be grateful for what we've been given and provided for. So that's why we're doing the episode. It's just kind of one of those off ones that I like to mix things up with, because I think it's an important one for all of us. And I hope this does help you, because I struggle with gratitude. I focus on it, and I'm getting better and better in my life, learning how to be grateful, taking the time to be appreciative of what I've been given. And, again, with my career, not to digress off of you guys for a minute, it's oftentimes I get a lot of tough stuff thrown at me. If it comes to my desk, it means it's elevated to a point where, again, a lot of things I deal with on a daily basis are pretty tough sometimes, and it's stressful. I don't care if we're talking about, travelers themselves or systems or facilities or Joint Commission or, it's there, and it comes across my desk to make it, I guess, to complete that thought. It is hard, and therefore I am oftentimes having to remind myself that I also, like you guys, get to do what I love to do. And I really do love this industry. I know many times it may feel, from my attitude and what I say on Travel Evolved, that I'm unhappy or disenchanted. Yeah, I'm disappointed in the industry. There is some disenchantment, if you will, that comes with this. But listen, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't feel that there is a really good end game and that there is an ability for this industry to keep getting better and better. There are periods of time in my career where I felt like the industry was going in the wrong direction. We've worked ourselves through that. Like I've said many times on this, is that the market itself has a way of working itself out. It always does. It's not indifferent to other businesses where things get a little weird, get a little tight, and all of a sudden they get great again because of the market. And that's what we talk about a lot on Travel Evolved. And I believe that no matter what you're experiencing right now, I really am hoping that what you're experiencing is a really wonderful time in your career as a traveling healthcare professional. I think that what we experienced the last few years had a lot of good, especially financial, for a lot of people. I do believe it came at a price. Make no mistake, and I don't think we're done seeing what that price is. I don't know how expensive the last couple of years are for the healthcare travel industry, but I do think there's a cost that came to that. We're seeing some of that now with just regard with bill rates and how hospitals pay their bills, the time frame in which they do, the number of needs they're looking at, and how cautious they are and trying not to overspend. So there's a long-term cost to that. As far as like overall bill rates, your guess is as good as mine, ladies and gentlemen. I've said to you many times that I have a guess, and I've oftentimes, and I'll back it up and I'll say it again, just to put my neck out there again, that I still believe that we will never go back to the 2019 rates. And obviously that makes sense because there's inflation and cost of living is getting higher as it does throughout our history. So what a rate was 5 years ago has never or should never be what it is today. But we have seen periods of time where it actually has been, where it's actually rates have gone down or have stayed the same, even though a cost of our living in our country has increased slightly. With right now, it's going to be really interesting to see what that looks like. But I do believe that we're never going to go back to those rates. I think because there is a shortage in almost all areas of healthcare. Not all of you are experiencing shortages in your particular profession or your particular specialty, but most of you are, and I don't think that's going to change. I think that's going to continue. And I also think, sorry, barking dogs. I did open up. I told you it's going to be loud. There's literally a beach 10 feet, maybe 5 yards away from me here. So I've got people riding by. It's going to be kind of crazy. But I want to do this because I just never open up. I always lock up, and because of the noise. It's a little quieter out here now because I'm grateful for the time where it's not touristy season. So getting back to bill rates, I just believe that it's going to be the case. They are not going to ever, I don't believe, get back to those rates where we were seeing them. And there was a lot of you, by the way, that were complaining. Those of you that were in healthcare travel in 2017, 18, 19, were starting to get a little bit complacent. You were complaining a lot about the rates seem to be getting lower and lower. And I agreed with you. I did see that. And I said that back with the company I was running at that point, that the bill rates are dropping. And again, hospitals are going to put their rates to wherever they have to in order to fulfill at the minimum amount, provided that minimum amount isn't so low that the quality of the candidate, of the travel that comes into the unit hasn't been compromised in any way, shape, or form, that it's still a strong traveler. And I think hospitals are always going to do that, and you guys can be upset if they're going to do that or not. It's really up to you. I don't know if there's an awful lot you can do about it. There's not an awful lot we can do. Of course, us agencies, if we learn nothing from the last year, if we're working on certain margin percentages, the bigger that bill rate is, the more money we're making. And I said that back, a couple of months ago, maybe in the wintertime, I had a few guests on, and I'm like, companies 30% margin, which a lot of the companies are at nowadays, that's $60 an hour. I'm just using some ballpark figures on a $200 bill rate, as opposed to $30 an hour and a $100 bill rate. And the last time I looked, besides floating that money out there, what did us agencies, me included, do differently to make that money than we would in normal times? And the answer was not a whole lot. Matter of fact, sometimes our placements were easier. There was more people going to work. We were getting a lot of auto offers. So theoretically, I think our job was actually more simple, and we were making oftentimes double the amount of money, certainly a heck of a lot more than what we were making beforehand. And I've said to you guys before, that's why the margins either stayed the same or a lot of them even increased, because so many travelers were focused on how great the paycheck was for them weekly that they kind of stopped thinking about what it should be. And I think a lot of companies kind of they didn't, it wasn't any kind of a plan. It wasn't some kind of a conspiracy they all got together, but I think they recognized that they could get away with a thicker margin. So everyone was making money at that particular time, and everyone will continue to. I do think that as we begin to see a little bit more normalization, if you will, of the bill rates, it will reflect, on those pay rates. It's I said, and again, I'm going to throw it out there. I don't believe they're ever going to go back to what they were, at least in the very near foreseeable future. I don't think they're going to go back to those $75, $80 bill rates that we were seeing for pretty high acuity type travelers. I'm just not seeing it yet. And there is a surplus of travelers out there right now. I do believe that as we move into the fall, as we always do, there is a tendency to have, a stronger need. We've talked about it in seasonality. We talked about it in traveler marketability and a lot of other episodes. In the summer and the winter, the population of the United States is either more diverse in the first case and more concentrated in the second case, which tends to lend itself to greater amount of needs during those two periods of time. I've always felt, and maybe I'm nuts, but there's always been like a month to 6 weeks that are in the spring and the fall when the population shift is undecided on what it's going to do this year, which means that we're not sure if we're going to have a early season, it's going to be cold, and we're not sure if it's going to have an early warm spring, which means those are the two times a year where I felt like things kind of slowed down as far as the number of orders went. But it was always a brief period of time. And again, all bets are off, and you can throw every single thing out the window over these last 2.5 years as far as, trends and seasonality, because it just didn't have it. This year we may see it. And I do see already, I can tell you that the number of positions I have, now we're adding contracts almost daily, so we're growing pretty quickly. But the contracts we had last summer and all winter long that we still retain and still have, their overall needs were huge. They dipped back down like everyone's did, and I know that was the case. And now those needs themselves are starting to increase as well. So what we're seeing is the general needs are starting to become higher, which is the only thing you can take from that is that there's really a pretty good possibility that the needs are going unfulfilled. Maybe the rates are too low and no one's taking them, or maybe there's just a general more need for travelers. It's hard to say, but I love and I'm fascinated by that aspect of the industry. So I want to just pause for a minute and have everyone just for a second think about your life. Think about the good things. Everybody's got garbage in their lives. I don't know of a life that's so charmed that I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure they exist where someone has zero problems their entire life. I don't even know what that would be. But I don't think that exists. If it does, it's pretty rare. All of us have problems. But all of us in the same breath, I do believe, have so much to be grateful for. I don't care if it's your health. Maybe that's one area that you really should be grateful for. Maybe it's your spouse or significant other. Maybe it's your family, whether it's your people that are older than you, your children if you have some. It could be your career. I hope it's your career and the choice that you've made. It could be what makes you happy and that you're able to be, in my case, like I'm talking about, what makes me happy. Boss. So it's really hard to say. I've got people all over the place. That's just the way it's going to be today, right? Got some work being done out here. So there is a lot of different reasons for being grateful in a different aspect of your life. I'm hoping that we could take a second, and you guys could, just to pause and think about what it is that you're doing or that you have in your life that you should be grateful and have gratitude for. Just think about it for a second. All those things I mentioned, and I'm sure plenty of other different areas that I didn't even discuss or openly talk about, there are things in your life that you would be sad or would be ashamed if you didn't have them. And I do believe that that's what we're talking about today, being grateful for what you have and not necessarily for the things you don't have, obviously. And that's what we're going to talk about here a little bit later on in the episode is we're not going to compare ourselves to the Joneses, right, as they say. We're going to talk about us and individually and what you have to be grateful for. And that's what I want to focus on this episode typically about. Part of the reason is that in our society, in the United States, we don't really spend a lot of time, at least in America, in the U.S. I can say for, again, sweeping statement, very generic to say, but I think overwhelmingly we as individuals in our society don't spend enough time being grateful. I hope that those of you out there that are shaking your head against me, that you do. That would make my heart sing because that would mean a lot of you do, and maybe I'm completely wrong. I know I don't personally. I don't sit there every day if I don't think about it and concentrate on what I'm grateful for. Now, I'm trying to do that, and you guys know me. I hate the word try. I think try is just a bad excuse for I'm not going to do something, but I'm going to do my best. So I don't like to use the word try. But I do focus on this because I know I don't do well with this. I know I don't sit there and go, boy, I'm really happy that I get to do what I love to do, that I get to talk to so many people, that I get to, work from different locations. My life is interesting. Every day is different and fascinating. Some days are bad, which makes the good days so much better. There's so much to be grateful for, and I hope you guys think about that. As a society, I just don't believe we're conditioned to be grateful. Many of us are so driven to move forward so fast and to want more, that I believe that oftentimes we don't pause and go, wait a minute, when does the game end? When do I have the things in my life that truly make me happy? And I think for many of us, it's right now. It could be right now. Sure, you can have goals. We talk about that. We've had episodes, or are we going to? I always get confused about goal setting and how to do that properly. That doesn't counteract what I'm talking about today. Goals are important. You have to have motivation. But what I'm trying to tell you is not to live your life as if it's unfulfilled and you should be so driven toward that you don't recognize the things that you've already received and that you've already either given yourself or been lucky enough to have. And that's what we're talking about here today. Being grateful in tough times, which is a whole different concept, is really difficult. So I'll talk about that too, because that's what our society tends to do. We tend to do two things. We don't think about what we have and how hard and what we've accomplished. And maybe it's been given to us, but maybe it's also been worked hard for. I think most people have a combination of both those two things. But I do also think that when things are at their toughest, when you've got a curveball thrown at you, I don't care if it's career or personal or something that's going on in your life, that is when I think most of us go, oh, darn it all, this is happening and woe is me, and you start feeling sorry for yourself. And you start to, your gratitude starts turning to either fear or anger or hopefully not depression, because you're not thinking about, okay, all right, I've got this, which I know life is this way. You have things thrown at you. But as you fix them and come out of them, those are the moments where you're like, wow, this wasn't as bad as I thought, or look at what I do have. And I think that's where the lesson really comes. I've done a lot of things on social media where I talk about being grateful in tough times. I think it's one of the most difficult tricks you can do in your own mind. And I don't think it's really a trick. It is a way of thinking. And I'm talking about, and I'll pause the gratitude for a minute, I'll talk about this concept. When you are getting thrown something that you are kind of asking, whatever you believe in, why? Why me? Why is this happening to me? What you should be thinking about is, thank you for showing me something, a lesson I'm learning that I don't ever want to repeat, that I want to get out of this situation. Let me help myself get out of it. Let me work toward getting out of it. And then I'm going to make darn sure I don't get back into it. It's an opportunity as a gift for the lesson that you're going through for the tough time, whether it's something you're dealing with your children or your spouse or your career or finances or your parents, something that you have no control over. It's still a lesson to learn and to be grateful for the opportunity that you've been given to become better and to become stronger because of that tough time. That's a hard one. Yeah, gratitude equals positivity, in my opinion. And I wrote that down because that's what I strive for. When I'm forgetting to be grateful for what I have learned, for the lessons I've learned, for the knowledge I have, for the lifestyle I have, for the opportunity to do something that I love, to work with people I truly care about, to me, that equals positivity. I mean, how can you be negative when you think about all the great things that you have in your life? I hope it's your health. I hope it's your mental capacity. I hope it's your career. I hope you have someone in your life that is worth sharing. I've seen people, on social media, and a couple people I really admire talk about, if you're lucky, you get to, kiss the person you love goodnight, and they're laying next to you every night. I mean, just think about that little thing for a moment. How lucky is it that you might have somebody that falls into that category in your life? That's amazing. And there's people that don't have that, or that people that are losing that, or people that have lost that, divorce, breaking up with a relationship, or never found the true love of their life. So if you're lucky enough to have that one little thing, it's not so little. Gratitude about it. Enjoy it. Embrace it. You'll love harder. You'll be loved better. And you'll have a little bit more positivity in your life. And it just all starts to come into play. I know I'm preaching. I feel like one of these people on social media that's trying to tell you something you already know. I'm not trying to do that. This is not about, half the crap you see on social media. I just wanted to pause everybody, and we're getting a lot of followers to say, wait a second, there's more to this career, there's more to everything, and there should be more to Travel Evolved than just talking about margins and numbers and beating the crap out of the industry at some point. There is wonderful things that happen every single day out there, and there are wonderful things that happen with travel healthcare professionals that go completely unnoticed. I know the news loves to jump on that rare individual that is maybe a bad apple or makes a mistake, or maybe it's not a mistake, maybe they're just who they are. It's amazing how the media will jump on that negativity. But there are wonderful stories that happen every single day. And I had one happen with my mom actually recently down in Texas. And she's in a hospital, and she had a traveler who really bonded with. So, I mean, I see stuff and hear stuff every day that's not just from you guys. And it makes you kind of well up and feel good about the industry when you hear wonderful stories about a compassionate nurse, in this case, who spent time as a traveler in Fredericksburg, Texas. I'll throw it out there with my mom. That makes me feel like, wow, we're doing some things right. And nobody in media wants to talk about that, but they were great about talking about how wonderful you guys were during the beginning of the pandemic. But then, as we all know, they kind of turned their back on a lot of healthcare travelers, and all of a sudden you guys weren't heroes anymore. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I think it's time for people to focus on the shortages we have in allied and nursing, and how you guys are out there fulfilling a lot of these shortages willingly for a little bit more money, but a heck of a lot of risk. And I think that's commendable. Okay, I threw this out there really quickly. I want to go circle back and say I talked about fear, and I talked about anger, and even stress, all being the antithesis or the opposite of having gratitude. It's the first thing that many people go to. I've got a problem. It's stress. I get stressed out, and stress leads to panic attacks and all those different things. If you pause and reflect and start thinking about what you're grateful for and what you have, which I think for all people is overwhelmingly positive, it does allow you to have a little bit more of a realistic focus on what it is, in fact, that is the thing you have to deal with, that threw the curveball at you. It makes it easier to tackle when you start thinking about, okay, I've got something going on at work, I've got someone who's bullying me, or I've got an issue, or I made a mistake, or I'm concerned about something. I'm just throwing that out as an example. However, look at where I am. Look at the opportunities I've had in the last 12 months. Look at where I'm going. Look at what I get to do. Look at all the friends I've made. And then you can kind of say, okay, all these wonderful things. Now let me focus on the thing that I've got to deal and handle. It just gives you a better head to get to those areas that you need to. And it allows you, in my opinion, to have a little more clarity and a little more focus on how to tackle and handle the things that all of us have to deal with in your life that kind of makes things go. So let the fear and the anger and everything else that sometimes is a knee-jerk reaction when you're dealing with these sorts of things go away, and focus on the gratitude. Focus on what you have. And I struggle with this, so I'm telling myself to do the same thing I'm telling you guys. Every day you should have a moment. And I think it's great, at the end of the day. It'd be good to do it twice a day, but, as I think about it out loud. But at least one time during the day, you should pause and reflect and say, I need to be thankful for what I've got. Now, you guys know me. I'm on a kick lately where I'm actually trying to increase my heart rate by both doing an incredibly high sauna a couple times a day, and I'm also trying to do a cold a cold bath, basically, for lack of a better word. I can't think what it's called. My mind's not working right now. But basically, what I'm doing is soak, where I'm doing a plunge, where I am literally in an ice bath, because it's good for my heart as long as I'm being safe with it. Those moments, the cold one's not so easy because I'm pretty much not focusing on anything but my own body. But when I'm exposing myself to some really high extreme heat, I actually need something to take my mind off. And so that is where I have found I start to focus on my gratitude, the things I'm grateful for. That's where prayer comes into play. Anything else that you need to do, it's a meditation of the mind and soul. Look for a moment like that you have. It could be when you're driving your car, coming to or going to or from work, before you turn in. Could be while you're having your coffee in the morning, or before you sit down to dinner. Find a time where you can focus on gratitude. And I think it absolutely will change the way you feel about your overall life. And start naming these things off. All those great things that you have, start focusing on them, and you'll be amazed and maybe even a little embarrassed at how much you have to be grateful for. It's pretty remarkable. You guys get to do what it is that you do, and I hope that's a career choice that you wanted, and I hope it's fulfilling because you chose this and you're finding it to be everything and then some that you thought it would be. That in itself would be something that you would be, boy, you know what? At the end of the day, is what I always say, this is all going on, but look what I've done for myself. Look what I've created, and look how I'm learning to be better, both financially, business-wise, I should say, socially, with who I'm becoming, the experiences I'm getting. There's just so much to be grateful for that it makes the rest of it harder to do. It is a lot easier, in my opinion, sometimes to complain, to blame, to feel sorry for yourself. I think that's an easier thing. I think it kind of goes along with how it's easier to frown than it is to smile. It actually takes less muscles to frown than it does to smile. I think it goes the same way. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just kind of throwing this out there as I'm thinking about it. But it does seem a little bit easier if something is thrown at you to complain rather than to go, yeah, but that's not a big deal. I can overcome this. I can do this because of all these different things I have. I think a lot of it has to do with our society. Again, we tend to compare ourselves, like I said earlier, and I want to get back to this. It's called keeping up with the Joneses, right? And that's more about things and possessions. But we as individuals do, I believe, tend to compare ourselves with people that we don't know. And of course, what we don't know about them is that they're experiencing tough times too. We tend to look at people's lifestyles or the way that they are, and maybe it's just their personality. And we think, oh my gosh, I wish I was more like that person. I wish I had the things, or it may not be material, but the things that they have, I wish I had in my life. I think that's an easy thing for us to do, and I think a lot of people who are, especially motivated, driven people, tend to use those sorts of things as beacons for goals. I think we oftentimes forget about those that don't have as much as we have for whatever reason that is, whether it's personal motivation or just what they were blessed with or what they were given. We always tend to look at other people, and what I would ask you guys to do is stop focusing on everybody but yourself. Be grateful for who you are. Be grateful for what your life is. And then have some goals, have some motivation to constantly try to improve all those areas of your life. Who you are as a person, the way you live, what you want, dreams, aspirations. I was throwing some personal social media out there the other day, and a gal who I don't know said, I've always dreamed of going to the beach. And it kind of surprised me. I thought, there's probably a lot of people in the world that have never even seen a beach in their lifetime. And then she really threw me a curveball because I think she was close to my age and said, I've never even been on a plane. And that one went, okay, that one was crazy for me because I'm here, you're all over social media, you seem like you have, and you've never gotten on a plane. I don't know what the person's situation was. It's none of my business. But the fact that that individual had never been on a plane and had never seen the beach, I went, man, what could I do to help that person motivate themselves to save up some money to figure out how to get on a plane and how to go see a beach? I would think that you'd be able to somehow, whether you had to plan for years and years or not, figure out how to do that. And I got kind of driven to try to help that person see a beach. And they happen to be on the East Coast, so there's a lot of beach on the East Coast. And I was trying to figure out a way to, without getting too personal, but she reached out to me saying, let's figure out a way to get you to the beach because this is what I love about the beach, and try to help motivate her. And so it's amazing how if you stop thinking about other people as far as comparing yourself to, I want you to think about other people, but if you start comparing yourself to other people, that in itself is a huge step in gratitude. If you stop thinking about every person you come across or meet or in your walk of life and start thinking about you yourself, both people that you feel have more or less to be grateful for, I think that's a huge step in your own personal well-being, your own personal mental and health, and where you're going to go, because now it is just about you. You can take everything out. There are things we cannot control in our life. We can't control how smart we are. We can't control how, I could go on and on. I'm not going to. But we could talk about all the different aspects of our life that you really, that's what you're born with, right? Or what you're not born with. But we can improve some of those. We can improve a lot of those. We can improve our life by ourselves, and we can become grateful for what we have and figure out how to become grateful for the things that we want to have and strive for and want to be motivated for. So here's what I'll tell you guys. Everybody on this planet has a completely different story. Everybody does. You're making and building your story right now. It is a story that is still being written, I hope. I hope you haven't just stopped and said, here's where I'm at and this is where I want to be, and I'm not going to focus on anything else. This is where I'm at. Now, start thinking about the story that you've written that is who you are in your life, and start saying, hey, I'm not done telling this story. I got a lot more to do. And remember, there's a lot more to do. You don't have to just say this is it. And I do meet people every day that I'm like, I don't know where they're going to head, what their story is. But I know that if they start to become more driven and motivated, their story is going to be a really interesting one that is a great story to hear and tell. And forget about what other people think. You're going to be able to tell it to yourself and say, I have a story, and it's not done yet. Because I can tell you, I've got a story, and it's not done yet. I've got huge aspirations, and I'm still trying to improve what I'm doing every single day, whether it's my own personal thing, the business, the way things work. It all kind of comes together and folds together, and it's nice. You are still telling your own individual story. What I'm getting at is, this was a long episode to basically say, be grateful. I think that's what we're trying to say at the end. I just feel that with the way things are, I think our society is, I don't know how else to say it, but I think the last number of years, we seem to be, and I'm old enough I can say this, it feels differently than it did when I was a kid. I'm sure my parents felt differently. I'm sure my grandparents felt differently. But it does feel like right now a little healthy dose of personal gratitude with everybody would certainly go a long way in what it feels like we are experiencing in 2022 in the United States of America. I just believe that. And I think, to wrap this kind of up, as a healthcare traveler, if you had the ability to choose this lifestyle, which I hope you did, hope you weren't forced into this, hope this was a personal choice that you made, I really, really hope that you are making the most of it and you're constantly thankful for all the amazing, wonderful parts about being a healthcare traveler that it brings to you, because there are some crazy things. And if you're not, look at what you're doing and say, wait a minute, I did this because I wanted to have all those wonderful things, and maybe I'm not taking those kinds of assignments, or maybe I'm not focused on that because I kind of lost my way a little bit. Get focused on that. Start to pay attention to what you want, what you're grateful for. Should be the fact that you have the ability to change something like that pretty quickly, at least every 13 weeks, right? So there is so much that our industry, from literally people on my side of the desk, to people at facilities, to people that are in the vendor management groups, to you guys themselves, all of us have so much to go, wow, it really is a pretty cool business, is it not? I hope you weren't doing it if it's horrible. It is really cool. There are great people to talk to in all four quadrants of that area, the quadrilateral of trust, as I say. Everybody has got some really wonderful things to bring into the table, and your job is to obviously filter through the things that aren't so great and focus on the ones that are. And I hope today's episode kind of got you thinking about everything in life, not just being a healthcare traveler. So we'll see. I wanted to kind of continue where I was a few weeks ago and talk a little bit about my time when I was at FastStaff. Basically, it was a really important time. And again, to kind of piggyback off today's episode, I wouldn't be where I'm at without that school of hard knocks. And it wasn't that hard of a knocks. It was good company. I have nothing but good things to say about it. It was a different time then. I can't really talk intelligently, like I've said, about it now. But I'm very grateful for Dan and his ability to entrust with me whatever it was that he saw in me. And it is one of the things that I have no trouble being grateful for, and I think about it all the time. Had it not been for that individual saying, hey, I kind of want to bring this kid into my fold, and I was a kid, and I want to teach him this industry from literally top to bottom, and some things that people have been in industry for longer than I have don't even know, because they didn't have a Dan, that it really did springboard and got me thinking. And he was a kind man. He was a businessman too, but I think a lot of what he wanted to do and wanted to see the industry evolve to, he didn't get a chance to see it, and it hasn't really happened yet, but we're working on it. I think it can. I think what it's going to take is some travelers to start going, wait a minute, why am I doing things the way I've been doing things? is there a better, faster, more efficient, lucrative, better way to improve my healthcare travel career? And the answer is, yeah, there is. There is. And we're not done. There are other people like me. It's not just this episode. It's what people are doing in the industry, but you have to focus and pay attention and get out of your comfort zone a little bit and say, what could make my life a little bit easier? And that's part of why I was so grateful with my time there, because it did install in me a little bit of that lack of, it wasn't a huge corporation. It wasn't a huge business at the time. It was privately owned by him and a few individuals. And there was a feeling of travelers were people. They weren't just a number. They just weren't a commodity. They just weren't a bottom line revenue source. They were people. And I don't know if that's still the case, but back then it kind of made me go, this is a humanistic, this is a very caring industry as far as what it is you guys do at the end game with your patients. It needs to be that way on this side of the desk. It needs to be that way from a hospital standpoint to a traveler. It needs to be that way from vendors when they understand what they're competing against, when you have your choices of all the different assignments to take and who to take them through. It has to be part of it. So I got a little frustrated, as I mentioned, and I was looking to have a little bit more control and a little bit more say in how to make some changes in the industry. And it was also, just the sheer fact of, I realized that the big company monster machine where it was all about revenue and all about bottom line wasn't for me. And it doesn't mean it's not for anybody else. It doesn't mean it's not for you as a traveler. It may not bother you. You may be okay. Again, opportunity and compensation and overall happiness, I think it should be the deterring factor for all of you guys to choose where and who through that you work through. But I felt at that point, just to kind of circle back around and tell you what I was thinking, was that it wasn't for me, that huge company mentality. I didn't like it, never have, even when I was in the advertising industry. I liked having some control and some say over the client and or now over the traveler. It's an important aspect of it, and I think it's one that I'm constantly going to be reminding myself as the company I'm working for right now, as we grow, and we are. I've got to not forget what it is that got us there, which I think so many CEOs and so many companies make that huge mistake. And we're going through it now. And so far, knock on wood, it has not been the case. We are absolutely reminded every day as to why we're doing what we're doing and the way that we're doing it, because it's working and it can't change. It's got to stay that way so that we can give back to this industry and we can start to have an idea that we are really working for the traveler. And that's what I'll leave you with at the end of the day here, is that we work for you guys. All of us do. Should make us earn it each and every day. I'm grateful for all of you guys for so many reasons. I'm grateful for listening, for tuning in, for telling your friends about this. I'm grateful that you guys do what you do. I'm grateful for this industry. I'm grateful for the opportunity I have to be a part of this industry. I screw up and make mistakes every single day. I just do. I don't know anybody that doesn't. Mine sometimes can be magnified because of what they are, but you got to learn from that. You got to be thankful for that lesson, and you got to be grateful for what it is that you have and where it is that you're going. Guys, I appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time on Travel Evolved.